So you mentioned typecasting there, but it's something you've constantly evaded, even though you've had some of the biggest and most famous roles in British television. And you mentioned two of them just there, in All Creatures Great and Small and Doctor Who.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how have you managed to avoid it?
I have no idea. I've just been very, very fortunate that sort of things have come along at the right time. There were big moments. I think when I left All Creatures, I think that was quite a big moment. And I got Doctor Who. When I left Doctor Who, that was an even bigger thing. But then, fortunately, I managed to move on to something there, which was a very peculiar practice, and then to Campion. So yeah, I mean, I've managed to do it, and I've been very, very fortunate to do that. A lot of actors, marvelous actors, get stuck either doing. Not necessarily means they can't work, but they get stuck in a particular genre, whether people see them as comedy actors.
Or villains.
Or villains. I mean, quite a lot of people who make a great living out of being villains saying, just want to play a nice guy.
Yeah. Or the other way around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I suppose it limits then the types of scripts you get sent. How was Doctor Who for you? Was it something you enjoyed? I know that I've read somewhere that a previous doctor gave you some advice that you shouldn't do it for more than 4 years. Yeah,
Patrick Troughton. I mean, funnily enough, in this outside this very building, he was trying to get into the car park. They used to have the horseshoe car park.
Yeah, they've still got it at the BBC.
If you were very, very lucky, you got to park in there, and he'd just been refused permission to park in there because he'd left Doctor Who, and I was just driving in because I was the doctor. He just said to me, "Look, do it for 3 years, get out." And it seemed like a good idea. My career seems to have gone in lots of 3 years.
Right.
I did All Creatures for 3 years. I did Doctor Who for 3 years, and it seemed to work very well. You weren't in it too long, so you got too associated with it. I loved doing Doctor Who. I just began to feel very jealous of my contemporaries, because I was still fairly young, who were coming in and doing different things and going off and coming back doing a series.
I think I'm right in saying 31 when you got that, were you?
I was just 30.
Just 30, even younger.
Yeah.
What do you make of the reincarnation of Doctor Who? Is it on in your house?
I cannot tell you how much Doctor Who I watch in my house. I've got two boys, 5 and 7. There was the Shakespeare story that was on about 3 weeks ago. I watched 10 times.
With the boys?
With the boy, yeah, not my own.
Just checking, Peter.
And it was a fantastic thing, because what it meant was we went to the Globe Theatre about 3 days after it was on. Just down on the South Bank, and apparently the number of visitors to the Globe Theatre have gone up tenfold since the Doctor Who episode had gone out about Shakespeare.
It just seems to me that they've struck a chord with Russell T Davies as the writer.
Well, he is a huge fan of it. It was really down to him that the series got back on the air. And he is, his hand, Russell T Davies' hand is all over the series. And it's a very expert hand, and they get marvellous writers. Stephen Moffat, Mark Gatiss have all written stories. I liken it to the lunatics running the asylum. These are all people who were fans of the series when they were young, and they've grown up and they are making it now. It's like fantastic.
He's asking you about Doctor Who a bit like asking Roger Daltrey about the Who. Or you're okay?
Well, I feel the new. Actually, I'm happier talking about the new Doctor Who than I am probably about my time, simply because my experience of the new Doctor Who is largely from the outside. I feel like I have a kind of in.
Yeah.
I think David Tennant used to watch me when he was young. But I am mainly a viewer, I have to say.
Have you met David Tennant?
I've met him, yeah. We actually went up to they only had one set in London, which was Rosie's flat, Battersea Way, and we went up there with the boys, and they hid. Well, one of them hid. The youngest wouldn't show his face because he was so excited, and they looked inside the TARDIS, which was sitting in the middle of this sort of piazza thing. And I said to him, "Don't look inside; it'll be a disappointment." And he insisted. He opened the door, looked in, he went, "That's rubbish."
Because of course there was nothing in there.
No, not a lot.
Oh, bless. Very Peculiar Practice was an excellent series, had a great writer and a wonderful cast. Likewise, All Creatures Great and Small. You seem to revel in the sort of slightly oddball role. Can we expect more of the same? He might be onto something, because actually The Last Detective is...
I'd like to develop the oddball side of my career, actually. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, there's a niche in the market.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, about 6 years ago I did a part in which I shouted at someone, and then I got another part because of that I shouted at someone. So I think the oddball thing is something I could develop. Yeah, good idea.
There's a great line in tonight's episode where I think it's your daughter who says, "Why do they call you dangerous?" And he says, "Oh, they're taking the mickey." Slightly more adult version of that phrase. Stuart in Edinburgh says, could you ask Peter if The Last Detective is available on DVD? I can't seem to find it anywhere. It's Stuart from the production company. He's had a planted question to try and promote the DVD.
No, the first series is available on DVD. I don't quite know why they haven't put it on DVD. They're a bit slow about that. Some ITV companies don't. I don't know why they don't really want to put things out on DVD. They really ought to. It's good just to see it on the shelf when you walk into a shop.
And if it's a show that only you like, that you know, well, not obviously only you, but if it's not a huge hit, but you still want to watch it again, it's.
I don't think there are enormous costs involved in making DVDs now.
Very
I
cheap,
think it's just they miss the boat a bit sometimes.
Someone sent a question saying, how many Doctors can there be? Originally, it was only 8. I presume that's a Doctor Who question, not an all.
No, I think there can be 12 regenerations. I think, which means 13 Doctors. Right. But you know, Russell T Davies he's dropped a couple of hints in there. I think he's already thinking down the line. You know, there's nothing is final in Doctor Who. He's planting the seeds of maybe there could be more.
Do you reckon time travel has a huge carbon footprint to it?
None at all, I don't think.
Excellent.
I think it's very good.
Simon wants to know, what is your favourite All Creatures episode?
It was when I was cooking the meals. I can't remember what it was called now, but it was. I think I was left. Mrs. Hall went off, and I was left to cook various meals for Siegfried. I burnt the sausages. I burnt everything really. That was great to do. A lot of scenes with myself and Robert Hardy, which he shouted at me a lot, which is always very exciting.
Obviously, there are various ways you can gauge popularity. Something viewing figures is very obvious, and the amount of publicity you attract, and requests for interviews and that kind of thing, the kind of vibe that's around the programme. But also with All Creatures, struck me that the number of comedy programmes that decided to parody you, and all of a sudden you were that well known that they could just do a sketch about someone losing an arm up a cow's backside.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, you know, the League of Gentlemen did a fantastic kind of thing of my character in All Creatures Great and Small. He used to go around, you know, seeing animals and killing them. It was amazing. I recently went back to the Yorkshire Dales, to the place where we filmed it, the village we filmed it, and remembered that a lot of the scenes we did after the first series, we used to do to an audience of 200 or 300 people standing on the other side of the road. Coach tours used to come through the Dales.
And watch you record?
Yeah, watch us record. I mean, they'd have to be shouted at by the first. You'd say, no laughing. If it's funny, don't laugh.
Right. It's not a bad day out, is it?
No, it's
I'm
good.
sure they do that for Emmerdale now, aren't they? Right, finally, before I let you go, I mentioned that we were watching the football last night, and they all said about Doctor Who, the lads. They also all said, you must ask Peter about Button Moon. Because I have to tell you that we all grew up with a little bit of Button Moon.
You know, it is my one link with the people who are just that bit younger, actually, because they all remember Button Moon, and they can't quite believe that I wrote it. Yeah, I wrote it, and I'm singing it.
Wrote and sung the theme tune?
Yeah, to Button Moon.
How did that come about?
A director I worked with at Thames on something else, and he got on to Button Moon, and he remembered that I had said I wrote songs, and he just rang up and said, how would you like to write the theme tune? I went, yeah, great, fantastic. There was even a stage show. There was a kids' stage show that went around the country, and somebody wanted to make a house version of it, but I think that's kind of past.
Can you imagine?
That would be great, wouldn't it?
How scary would that be? Very late on in the evening, and you're at a club.
Yes.
Enjoying a spangled night out, cutting some shapes, as they say, on the dance floor.
Everyone joining in. We're off to Button Moon.
Did they show you an episode before you wrote the tune, then?
They showed me.
Did you pretty much know that you were following Mr. Spoon to Button Moon?
I think they told me the setup, and they showed me the pictures. I don't think they'd recorded one at that time. They're just the pictures of the models, and I went away and came up with it. It was excellent.
Well, I have to say, I've got to literally everyone last night. Button Moon. I mean, it's held in real sincere affection.
It is extraordinary. It is.
It's lovely to meet you. Thanks for coming in and talking to us.
Thank you.
The Last Detective, ITV1 tonight. It's the return and the first of 5.
Yeah.
Right. Roger Daltrey's in tonight's episode. It's an hour and a half, and it's a fantastic watch. It's cute in moments and dark in moments, which is enough to keep you on the edge of your seat where you should be for these things. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you. Peter Davison there.